Let's talk about how to find your first crow pose as a calisthenics beginner. Crow pose is not just a core exercise. It's also teaching your body how to distribute weight through your hands and fingertips. One very important thing that we cannot neglect when it comes to learning crow and practicing crow is your wrist mobility. And I feel like this is something a lot of people don't pay attention to, even when it comes to handstands. Wrist mobility is so crucial for any exercise that heavily loads the wrist. So think push-ups, handstands, crow pose, even planks for that matter. Any sort of arm balancing, you'll get better work out of them if you pay attention to your wrists first. So we're just doing a few warm-ups. We started with some circles. We did some forward extension stretching, and then we flip the fingers back and just do some back extensions here. And then we'll just start rolling from the fist to the wrist, fist to the wrist. And we just do some waves, and we just stretch each wrist each direction. We're grabbing across the knuckles here, not the fingers. Gently pull towards you, just so you feel a light stretch through the wrist and lightly through the forearm. And palm away, grabbing in the same area and pulling back, keeping the arm nice and straight. Now let's get into some basics of crow pose. First up is going to be how to grab the mat. You don't want to just have your palms flat and inactive in this pose. That is putting all of the weight into your wrists and not properly distributing through your fingers. I always tell my clients and my class participants to grab the mat like Spider-Man. You know how Spider-Man climbs buildings and he seems to have sticky fingers? Well, I want you to grab the mat like you have sticky, grabby fingers. Hands down right underneath the shoulders. We're going to spread the fingers wide like a baseball mitt, and we're going to grip through our fingertips, our thumb, and our palms. That way you're not putting all of the weight into your wrists. You're properly distributing through your fingertips and your palm. Then we can kind of get into how to feel the weight shifts in your hands. We can just start in a tucked position, not even like we're trying to come into our crow just yet. I just want you to practice leaning onto your hands so that you can feel the weight distribution in your hands. You lean as far forward as you can while staying balanced. One thing that I think makes people uncomfortable about crow pose is that they really have to trust the lean and lean far forward to catch their float point. And for a lot of people, that's scary because obviously you don't want to fall on your face. After we feel the lean, now it's time to try and tuck our knees as close to our chest as we can. You want to think about getting your knees as close to your armpits as you can. But for a lot of beginners, they either can't get their knees compressed in this much, or pushing their knees onto the backs of their triceps hurts a lot. So we're going to take the knees a little bit wider and kind of come onto this inner portion of our knees here. It's not quite as hard as our kneecaps. It's kind of a little froggy-like position. The knees come wide, and it's like the insides of the knees come to the elbows. That way we don't have to be as compressed, and we can still practice leaning forward, and our base is a little bit wider, so it makes us feel a little bit more stable. You don't have to worry about floating the toes up just yet. Just try and stay as compressed as you can and trust the lean forward. Now we're going to practice our crow leans from a little bit of height using some blocks. If you do not have blocks, you could also use a couple of pillows or a couple of books that are roughly the same size. Hands underneath the shoulders, knees to the backs of the arms, and trust the lean. You may be able to get a little bit tighter to those armpits using a little bit of height. Lean, lean, lean. You may be able to float. If so, that's great. If not, that's okay too. Next, we're going to play with floating the toes. So we have a trusty pillow to catch us just in case. Same thing here. You want those hands to be right underneath your pillow's edge, shoulder width apart. We're going to take the knees a little bit wider so that we're not hurting our triceps. And we're going to lean, float one foot up, rock back, lean, 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 float the other foot up, and back. You can alternate floating one leg and then the other as much as you like. We can even take a single leg hold just like so that we're trusting the lean and getting a little bit of hold time and strengthening as we go. And now it's time to fully trust the lean and float up both feet for a hold. Hands right underneath the shoulders. We're going to compress those knees in as tightly as we can, taking them just a little bit wider than our triceps. Lean, 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 and float. Even if you only get a second or two of float time, that's perfectly okay. I just want you to make sure that as you're leaning, you're not jumping into your crow pose, you're leaning into it. If you jump your feet off of the mat, you're going to face plant, and we don't want that. Don't be discouraged if you're not floating on the first day. These drills are meant to be done over several weeks, not just over the next 5 minutes to get you to your crow pose. It might take weeks of you just practicing the lean forward and back for you to get enough confidence to be able to float up one leg at a time and then finally find your crow. Everybody advances at different speeds, and that's okay. As you advance, you'll want to bring those knees closer to center and align more over your triceps. Yes, it does hurt at first and it takes some conditioning. That's okay. You can alternate between having your knees wider and on the triceps to kind of give your arms a little bit of a break. Once you start to feel confident with your crow, then you can string it together with your headstands, and you can play with different inversions and different ways of getting yourself into and out of your headstand. Now let's give those wrists a break and do a few core strengtheners that will help you get your knees closer to your chest. The first move is going to be these double leg crunches. We're coming from a hollowed body position, setting all the way up on our sits bones to compress the knees to chest as close as we can. Make sure when you extend the legs out that the whole back stays flat on the mat. Then we're coming into plank knee to elbow taps. These are slow and controlled, bringing the same side knee to elbow and tapping as closely as you can. Then one of my favorites is the glider knee tuck. Shoulders stay stacked over the wrist, upper body stays in one nice straight line as we work to tuck the legs in as closely as we can. And of course, we're scooping the belly button up and in. Next are these compressed reverse crunches. Lying on our backs with our knees tucked, we're working on bringing the booty up off the mat, getting the knees closer to chest as we lift. Just remember, babes, to always trust the lean, don't overthink it, and have fun. Love you, babes.